It's good to have you here. JD, the deadline yesterday passed for the Department of Justice to provide evidence to substantiate Trump's claims on wiretapping. I mean, it's come and gone. There's no proof still. So I'm just going to bluntly ask you here, did the president open his mouth with this allegation before he thought it completely through?
Liz, I think what's going on is most in the media, or at least a lot of people in the media and a lot of blogs, are basically trying to catch President Trump in this gotcha game over what he literally says and what he means. So when he's talking about wiretapping, what he's really saying in the big picture sense is that the Obama administration had been keeping him and his associates under surveillance. And we know this is true because otherwise, why would people know what General Flynn was saying to Ambassador Kislyak in December? How would we know that unless the Obama administration or someone else eavesdropped on that conversation? So Mr. Trump is right in the sense that people have been listening to the Trump campaign behind closed doors. How that's going to come out in the investigation, we'll see. But I think a lot of people just take him too literally when they should be paying attention to the merits of what he's actually trying to say.
Right. No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I think the president could make it easier for all of us by just saying what he means instead of phrasing things a little bit differently. But I agree with you. I think that the trip up here from the Democrats' side, the part that I guess shoots a hole in their narrative is the fact that General Flynn was engaged in all that controversy. We knew about it because his phone conversation with the Russian ambassador was recorded, and then someone within the intelligence community who had access to that classified information that we didn't have access to leaked it to us. And I guess that changes the question just a little bit to, did the Obama administration abuse their power of surveillance? Because it could be legal, it could be legitimate to conduct some sort of surveillance on a foreign agent if they believed that person was a foreign agent. So the question, I guess, that I'll pose to you is, did they abuse their power of surveillance?
Well, they may have, but the Justice Department right now is looking into this. They have till next week to report back to Congress on what they find. But Liz, I got to say that I've personally been ensnared in this as well. I mean, as you guys have reported here on OAN, thankfully, I had a brief conversation with Russia's ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, out in Cleveland during the GOP National Convention, but I talked to dozens of ambassadors out there because it was part of a U.S. State Department program where we were supposed to talk to ambassadors. Yet when USA Today reported it, guess what, Liz? It blew up into a major story, into a major controversy, because when Mr. Trump had been asked if there were any contacts with Russia, he said, it's not true. But the thing is, what he meant was there was no collusion with Russia. So in just this semantic battle, the press has tried to demonize all of us associated with Mr. Trump, and a lot of people, Liz, have tried to character assassinate me. I'm just glad there's no dueling anymore like there were centuries ago.
Right, and that's a distinction I've tried to make since the beginning of these accusations against Trump for supposedly colluding with Russia, that regardless of whether he or a member of his team now, his administration, or a member of his campaign, such as you, whether you talked to the legitimate ambassador of Russia, that's a very different thing than colluding secretly to hack Hillary Clinton's emails or her staff's emails and giving them to WikiLeaks. Two entirely separate things that I think the left is trying to smear together. They're trying to paint it in people's minds as the same thing, in order, like you said, for character assassination. But you're right, JD, you were part of Trump's campaign team. You were a national security advisor to him at that time, working out of Trump Tower, being involved with the campaign, even having contact in July at the Republican National Convention with the Russian ambassador. Do you have any reason to believe that you were ever surveilled or wiretapped in any way?
Well, I don't personally, but I don't really know. You know, who knows what they were listening to? But that's what I think is very important for the Justice Department to do, an investigation, report back to Congress. But there's just been so much disinformation out there, Liz. I'm glad that we're talking about it. I'm glad that we're trying to show what's really happening, and that is so many people on the left, and even some Republican never-Trumpers, are spreading disinformation, trying to connect dots where there aren't any, trying to manufacture controversy. People should just kind of listen to the sentiment of what Mr. Trump is trying to get across, and that is people within the Trump orbit were surveilled upon.
Right, and let me push on that. Let me interject just for a moment. People were surveilled on. We know that. We established that at the beginning of the segment. General Flynn, for one, certainly was recorded in his conversation with the Russian ambassador. Who else? Who else do they suspect was a target? Who else had their phones tapped or had electronic surveillance of any kind, just to not play the semantics game, enacted against them?
Well, there have been some press reports about it, so I don't want to mention any other names. The General Flynn was obviously out there in the press, but there are some other people who have been mentioned. Not me, fortunately, but there have been some other folks mentioned associated
Paul
with Mr.
Manafort,
Trump,
his campaign
who may
manager
have
of
had
just
their
a
phones
month or
tapped.
two. Paul Manafort was mentioned because he had ties, he lobbied, or he consulted for the pro-Russian Ukrainian president. I know his name was tossed around. I didn't know if there was any other, I guess, insider information within the Trump campaign of knowledge of who exactly they were tapping or why they might have been tapping.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There have been press reports about it. Who knows if the press reports are even right? There's been so much disinformation out there. Even talking to my family, I have to walk them through it to explain what happened, what didn't happen, just because you really can't trust what you see on TV. Even if it's CNN or whatever it is, when I've talked to reporters, sometimes what I've said to them doesn't come out exactly as I've said it. So then you have the left-wing blogs jumping all over me saying, well, I've changed my story about the GOP platform, about meeting with the Russian ambassador, you name it. Well, I've never changed my story once. But the left-wing blogs in particular, they have no compunction about lying. But the good news is I was able to get 4 different corrections, including from a major U.S. National newspaper and some blogs too. So, I mean, I've been chipping away at this every day, Liz, for about the last 2 weeks. I sort of feel like Frankenstein being chased by village idiots with torches. Remember when they were trying to kill him?
Right.
That's sort of how I felt like the last 2 weeks.
Right. Well, hopefully in the end, the truth will set you free here. I hope we're just able to get access to the truth. And I guess that's what we'll see more so next week on March 20th during this committee hearing where FBI Director James Comey is set to testify about any investigation into Trump's ties to Russia here. JD, we'll have you weigh in on that next week. But thank you today for being here.